We're back. It's been a year
Finally.
since our last Fireside Chat,
Yes.
and there certainly was a lot of ups and downs in that year.
Yes.
Almost right after we did it, there was
We're
more
locked down.
strange things that happened, but we're back again, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought let's start by talking about going back to work, because this was a topic last year. It still is a topic right now, because we did endure some more lockdowns. So, when it comes to organizations that are starting to go back to work, what are you hearing about from leaders about how that impacts the organizations?
But it's been an interesting journey because if there was a lot of challenges when people first went to work at home, there was, how do you organize yourself? There was spatial issues, got family, and people were trying to figure out how to balance with working. And then now at first it was like we didn't like it, but now people grew to like it. Now the conflict is employers would like to have the employees come back to the workspace, and not everybody's very happy about doing that. So we've been hearing a lot about, both from leaders, to say, well, how do we organize and structure that? And some people want to just go back to the way it was. Well, just come back and resume as it was, like just take the pause button off and start all over again. And they're getting resistance. I don't know, is that what you've been hearing too?
Yeah, there's hardly a conversation with the leaders in our coaching practice where it hasn't come up, really. And we work a lot with assumptions with the Courage Group practices in coaching, and we're inviting our coaches, coaches that work with us and the leaders that we work with, to really challenge assumptions that we're each making, the leaders as well as the employees. It's been an interesting thing for them to begin to put out in front of themselves. What are the assumptions I'm making? What can't be put back into the model? It's out of the bottle now, so we know things that we didn't know before. And I think they're beginning to engage staff with some really interesting conversations about possibilities. What can we do differently? How do we use the time when we're in the office to most effect? And how do we fill in some of those things that we've been missing now because we've been in virtual space? So I think it's been an interesting conversation that they've been having. And I know that there's lots of, it's just beginning in terms of thinking of what are the opportunities that they can use now for in-person time and space.
Yeah. And some people are looking at hybrid kinds of working space. I think mostly it's about this whole notion of, do I need to be in control of what people are doing? So, a lot of, there's this assumption that if people will only be productive if I can see what they're doing, and if I can be lording over them, I guess, in some respects, that works. And that's, at first, that's what people were afraid of, and some of those assumptions prove true. So leaders who have that style, who operate from that form of mind where they want to be in control, are finding that that's not maybe going to work anymore. That's maybe not what produces productivity. So it's interesting.
Yeah, because I've spent a lot of time talking to just friends and colleagues about what they're doing, and it's sort of funny, not to be too cynical, but like a lot of organizations, I think, are used to exerting quite a bit of control over their people when it comes to how they work, right? Like, you will work this time in the office and the day will be this day, and now that there's this change that's happened, I think employees have been able to open their eyes to, maybe I don't have to do it this way. And I think some organizations, at least the ones that are adaptable, are learning that this can lead to possibly more productivity, certainly happier people.
And innovation.
Yeah.
It's new ways of doing things that weren't, people didn't even think about trying before. I think that's one of the things we talk about with our leaders, that if we, the best way to really achieve results through people is to, give them the vision. See, this is where we want you to go. This is the outcomes we're looking for. But then let them create, provide them those resources and supports they need, but then get them to create what they're doing, and then let them find what does it mean to me, and connect to their personal purpose. So that's what's really more effective. So they can actually, if they can shift their way of thinking and being, and just let go a little bit of the control piece, which that's a lot of our coaching conversations are about. How do you achieve the results you're looking for, but not by driving people or controlling people, but inviting them into a different kind of relationship.
Yeah. And now, because in some ways the tables have shifted and employees are in more demand, employers need people and they need to create conditions in their workplaces where they're happy. And if they're not, they're going to move on. So I think it has changed the balance, and employers are now, particularly the leaders we're working with, are more interested in what does collective leadership look like? How do I engage people? How do I create psychological safe workplace? We have that language out there, but what does that really mean today when we're making this shift? So I think there are lots of possibilities that employers and leaders are looking for, and they need the staff that work in their organizations to help them create those solutions together.
There's been a lot of conversations we've heard and seen recently about employees being treated as costs or cost centers, and so that when people, when trying to be efficient or increase their profits, that we just cut people. And really the new paradigm, we have to look at our people as the assets. They're what produce the product. They're the people who have the relationships. In healthcare, they're the ones who are delivering the care. So how do we really change our view of what are our employees? How do we look at them as our assets instead of as liabilities? That sometimes they're treated that way too.
Well, yeah, I've often thought that, what organizations could benefit from is truly living the values that they state, because a lot of organizations say they stand for creativity and entrepreneurial spirit, but they don't actually want that out of their people, right? Because a creative solution to something may be working in a different type of space or suggesting a new process, and often that isn't the case. So I think this has allowed organizations, at least the ones that have sort of strengthened their vision, to say to their people, we truly mean these values, so we want you to live them as well. So.
And are courageous enough to step out and actually engage the staff in figuring this out with them. This whole idea of it, we've lived a grand experiment for 2 years.
Yeah.
And now the experiment has to continue, just it has to be focused on something a little bit different over the next couple of years as they figure out what works, what doesn't, what are we going to keep, and what are we going to change. And together, I really do believe we're going to see a lot more creative opportunities in our workplaces.
So the question I would leave with leaders is, so what would it be like if you were to look at your employees with a different mindset, and you saw them as being creative and resourceful, and that they were really going to be doing their job and probably exceeding their job if they have just the minimum liberating structure, some really clear vision and goals that they can work towards, and then you give them the freedom to achieve it. What that would be like.